I bet you thought that was a really quick 1 minute countdown, huh? I changed it midstream to 10 seconds because I was already there. Anyway, so welcome to the Path Forward. My name is Cassandra Williamson. I'm coming to you from, oh, the dreary Monday up in Hardy, Kentucky, Pike County along the Tug River. And one of these days I'll get some video and go over into my place where I was born in West Virginia, in Williamson. Yeah, hometown. Well, not quite a hometown, but place where I was born anyway. So I've been thinking over the past quite some time about all these book bans and what's the impact on it. But then whenever you started going after the books at the Naval Academy, and whenever the Trump administration said, we don't want our midshipmen to read that kind of stuff right there, that's just too tough for them to handle, I guess. We don't want them to see stuff like that because we don't believe any of those people that's mentioned in those books actually exist, and don't have a right to exist. So we don't want them to read about those people. We don't want them to have any kind of perspective that might help them understand diverse minority populations. So that's me speaking like Trump. I'm putting my own slant on the sound, if you can tell. So anyway, yeah, they're going in and they've removed them. Let me put it this way. They've removed a bunch of books, but here's the best thing about it. Just recently, I think over the weekend, I saw that someone had a bookseller out in town in Annapolis. They decided to get together and raise some funds to buy all those books that were banned and make them available free to the midshipmen. They can come out to that store and they can get one of those books for free, which I think is amazing. And another person also connected to the Naval Academy started helping them raise money. So they got a lot of money raised to buy books that the Naval Academy is banning. And that's great. That's great because that is the resistance that's going to push back against this insularity, this kind of myopic thinking, the small-minded thinking that the Trump administration is foisting on the whole country, that Ron DeSantis forced down in Florida, and that people are doing, many states are doing it, Arkansas and Texas and you name it. They're all over the place. They're going after the knowledge. They're going after things that, even though they may offend some people, well, if you're in leadership roles, like say in the Naval Academy, and you get out of the Naval Academy, you graduate, you get your commission into the Navy or the Marine Corps, and you go up to be a leader, and you spend some time doing that. Well, one of the things you ought to be doing along the way is reading and reading and reading. Have yourself a reading list. Study those things. And don't be afraid of tackling ideologically different perspectives from you. As a matter of fact, that will help you understand other people better and lead them better. And that's the problem that we're facing with removing knowledge from our academies, removing or restricting access to information through all of our academic endeavors at the higher education level throughout the country. That's what's going on. It's an effort to stymie education, stymie knowledge, make it only fit what they want, and to limit ideological perspectives so that, hey, maybe you're just thinking like they are. You're in their little echo chamber. And that's a lot of what's going on. We see it every time books have been banned. It has an impact on that culture, that society. They become more insular. They become more echo chamber-like. They start having the inability to think for themselves and to be able to strategize and plan for the future in a connected world. Whether that type of connection is within the boardroom of a corporation or the boardroom of a nonprofit or out on the battlefield or in the military or wherever it might be, you want people who are well-read, not afraid to pursue knowledge, not afraid to look at other perspectives, other ways, and through the eyes of another person, another human being. that increases your level of empathy and your understanding and your compassion, and you begin to understand where they're coming from. And once you can get that, then you're well on your way to having a strategic mindset. It's a very specific thing. And it really, really disheartens me that the Naval Academy and West Point, the Air Force Academy and the Coast Guard Academy, Merchant Marine Academy, these academies are military oriented, except Merchant Marine, and except in time of war. They have to be able to think about many, many different topics and be able to make decisions that will impact the lives of many people. And once you start restricting their knowledge, you have made the demise of that organization or that country paramount. It's going to happen when you start cutting knowledge, access to knowledge, when you start cutting research out because, oh, we don't like that particular word in there. And this is a funny one. Yesterday, I was reading a scientific report. It was about transcriptomes. You know what those are? Well, yeah, okay, just raise your hand. All right. So anyway, there were some things going on in there inside the DNA and things like that. And there were cis and trans molecules. And it had nothing to do with gender. It was just science. And I can well imagine that this administration, when they do one of those blanket searches across their systems and they find the word cis, or they find the word trans in research papers somewhere, or published stories, the academic environment at the college, whatever, you find the word cis or trans in there and they go, we can't have that, we got to delete it. The whole field of knowledge gets wiped out in a scientific field because some idiot's got his head wrapped around some ideological perspective that doesn't amount to squat, but is dangerous for the future of the country. And this is exactly what they want to do. They want to stymie education, folks. They want to stymie knowledge. They want to control the entire narrative of the country and control what you can think and believe. And if that doesn't remind you of something, well, I'm not going to delve into the historical lessons associated with that. You know exactly what I'm talking about. So anyway, I sent out something, I think it was this morning. It's called First and Second Order Effects of the Naval Academy Book Ban. Well, that's what a lot of this talk is coming from, that thing that came out in the email to everyone about a bunch of people. And on the front cover of it, let me see if I can pull this up. Well, no. Anyway, there's an image of a library and Trump's looking at it, okay? And I call it the new Nimitz Library. Nimitz Library is the main library that's on the Naval Academy campus, okay? Been in that thing a lot. Even slept in it a few times, truth be told. Go in there and fall asleep in the stacks. Yeah. But Trump and his imbeciles, they only want the midshipmen to read the reef points. Now, those of you who don't know, the reef points is a little guidebook that they give every freshman going in, every plebe going into the academy, that kind of gives you the rules and different things. And you get to write, you can write, well, we did, I don't know if everybody still does, but we wrote in the names of our company mates in the back and all this, so we'd know who they are, because you had to know all this stuff. But that's basically what Hegseth and Trump are wanting to do, is that you only need to study the reef points and things contained therein, because that's all the knowledge you need. It makes you the best leader in the world. You only just study war fighting. Well, look, and the reason, going after the rest of it, the rest is just, as I put a little tag at the top of the page, the rest is woke and the words are too big. That's a Trump parody. I just want y'all to know. So, it's just flabbergasting to me that we have people who seem to think that if you limit knowledge, restrict knowledge to certain things, restrict academia to certain things, the things that you approve, that it will be beneficial to that organization or that military or that nation in the long run. It will not. You are teaching the leaders there. You're teaching the leaders, potential leaders, the new leaders coming up and being trained. You're teaching them that Ideological diversity is not welcome. You're teaching them that viewpoint diversity is not welcome. You're teaching them that, we can learn all we need to know about war fighting without having to understand anything about different peoples around the world. The cultural competencies, all those things matter. And it doesn't have to be factual things that you read. It can be fictional things that you read because somebody wrote that from their perspective. It gives you a way of seeing things through someone else's eyes and makes you more empathetic towards understanding those things. And your thought going through your head right now is this: why would I want to be empathetic of our enemies? Well, if you don't know your enemies, you'll lose to your enemies. That's just the truth of the matter. Every time you look down through history, a nation that had gained so much arrogance to believe that only their way was the right way, lost, were wiped out or assimilated. That's the way it happens, folks. So you want your leaders to be able to think for themselves and not have knowledge spoon-fed to them from your pea brain. That's what I happen to think of these people. They've got a lot of power and they got a lot of popularity and all this kind of stuff. And people are falling all over themselves to follow this man, Trump. I know, 77 million people voted for him. That's true. And there's a lot of people in the country right now who are up in arms over all the tariffs and all that and the declining stock markets and all that. But those are temporary. The attack on the academy, and I'm talking about academy in a broad sense, the academic environment, the attack on the academy, the attack on the pursuit of knowledge and research and, the basics of understanding the world around us, the attacks on those things are far more insidious and dangerous. Those are the things that give you the foundation. Now, look, I'm not the only one who has ever said something like, Americans aren't really interested in science. we hire scientists from other countries and bring them here. That's partially true. I think it was Isaac Asimov who said something like that, me paraphrasing it slightly. Yeah. This group of Trump acolytes have only one thing in mind: their immediate gratification. They aren't thinking about tomorrow. They say they are. They tell you that I'm just wanting the best for the nation and I want to move the nation forward. I want to give the nation the best and strongest footing it can stand on economically and militarily and all that. But if you're sucking your education system down, if you're destroying the academia side of things, if you're doing those things, you're wiping out access to knowledge and you're restricting the research that you can do to things that you approve of because, you don't want to be studying anything like, those trans and cis molecules. You'll destroy the country. It does not matter how strong you make your military. It does not matter how strong you make the individual. It doesn't matter how much you clear it all out and try to make it in your image. You'll destroy it. Because the thing that makes us strong is when we have access to knowledge, when we have access to new ways of thinking, when we pursue new ways of thinking. When we look people in the eye and tell them the truth about who they are and what they are and how they got there, and we understand that and we can be empathetic about it. For instance, I'm empathetic towards the Garcia who's down there in El Salvador right now that got picked up and deported. I'm empathetic towards him, but he doesn't belong in the country either. Sure, I'm empathetic to him and his family in Maryland. But he's illegal. They crossed the border illegally. So I don't think, in my personal opinion, that's where you draw the due process line. You say, no. No, you already got him out of here. Let's leave him alone. The Democrats over there are trying to make some big deal out of this. You're shooting yourself in the foot. And you get to this kind of level of knowledge because you can see other perspectives. You can read things that aren't necessarily ideologically convenient for me. I can see the other perspective. I can see the other side of things. And I'm not blind to it. I see it. I feel it. I understand it. It's a willingness to walk in another person's shoes. It's a willingness to read broadly, not restrict what it is that I'm reading, because, you know, you can learn a lot from the craziest of things. With that, I'm going to call it an evening. I hope to see you tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern on The Path Forward.